I am Carter's stand-in. The same day his white moonlight returned home. I had an accident. I lost my memory. I forgot about the relationship between myself and him. Mistakenly thought she was the girlfriend of the gold owner. She started acting willfully. Later, not only did we not separate, I completely replaced the special person in his heart. Now my head hurts. My memory has also become blurry. I am sitting alone in the emergency room, watching doctors, patients, and staff bustling about. A sudden panic seized me. I couldn't remember anything. I knew nothing. It was as if the world had forgotten me. I took out my phone. The screen was broken, but it still worked. The screensaver showed a photo of me with a man. The man had deep eyes, a sharp-featured face. He was very handsome. He looked a little arrogant. He was tilting his head slightly. It seemed like he didn't want to be in the photo, but there was a hint of tenderness in the way he looked at me. Who is he? I wondered. I started going through the photos and chat history on my phone. It was all about that man. I asked him, "Are you okay? Are you hurt? Have you gone to the hospital for a checkup? Are you feeling unwell anywhere else?" An anxious voice suddenly interrupted my thoughts. I looked up, a little dazed. I saw the man in the photo on my phone standing in front of me. Finally, I've found someone I can rely on. I couldn't help but cry out in relief. I hugged him tightly around the waist. I poured out my grievances in a loud voice. "Honey, why did you take so long to come?" The man looked at me in surprise. His assistant next to him looked at me in surprise as well. I continued. "It's been over an hour. You're only here now. You don't care about me at all. Do you not love me anymore? Do you not want me anymore?" My cries attracted the attention of the medical staff passing by. The man's expression became a little strange. The assistant whispered, "Boss, did Sophia hit her head?" I said firmly. "My head is fine. You must be my husband." I took the photo on my phone and held it in front of the man. The photo showed him sleeping soundly, and I was happily giving a thumbs up next to him. I asked him again, "Could it be that I've mistaken you for someone else? You're the kind of man who wouldn't recognize me if I turned around." My question once again aroused the curiosity of the patients and staff. The man looked at me with a complicated expression. He said with some embarrassment, "Actually, no." I rushed up to him again and put my arms around his waist. I cooed softly, "Honey, I knew you were the best for me. My dear, my head hurts. Blow on it for me." Although the man looked embarrassed, he lowered his head and blew softly. Although his movements were a bit unnatural, I felt especially sweet in my heart. I shyly took his hand and asked in a low voice, "Honey, what's your name?" The man said, "Sophia. It's possible that the car accident caused temporary amnesia. As long as she is in contact with familiar people and environments, she should be able to gradually recover her memory." The man walked over to me with a worried face. I immediately grabbed his hand. "Honey, what's wrong with me? Have I got a serious illness?" "It's nothing. You just can't remember. If I forget you, forget what we used to do, will you still like me?" He stared at me for a long time, and then slowly said, "No." I smiled happily and asked, "Honey, what is your name exactly?" Carter said, "Remember, my name is Carter." I nodded with a smile. "Remember, Carter, my husband." Then I asked, "Honey, do I need to do any other tests? If there's nothing wrong, can I go home? I'm hungry." The assistant said to Carter in a low voice, a little embarrassed, "Boss, Sophia seems to have become quite carefree after losing her memory. Didn't she used to call you Mr. Carter? Sophia has always been strict with herself, following the rules." But now Carter's deep eyes looked straight at me. He said slowly, "It's okay." Carter took me home, although I can't really remember much about what happened before. I can tell that the place is decorated in my favorite style and looks particularly luxurious. I take Carter's hand and give it a shake. I coo, "Honey, I'm hungry. I want to eat something." I can see Carter's body shake slightly. He's clearly taken aback by my coquettish tone, but he doesn't think much of it. He looks at the gauze still wrapped around my head. Then he takes off his suit jacket, raises his sleeves, and went into the kitchen to get started. The assistant looked at his boss in surprise. "Boss, what are you doing?" "Cooking." I volunteered to invite him. "Mr. Assistant, do you want to join me?" "No thanks." The assistant quickly declined and explained, "Boss, I still have some work to do at the office. I have to go back first." After saying that, he didn't wait for his boss to nod and hurriedly left. I couldn't help but praise. This assistant is really a good employee who is dedicated to his work. Carter seems like a spoiled brat who never does any housework. I didn't expect him to be quite so good at cooking. In less than an hour, he had 3 dishes and a soup on the table. I nudged the poached shrimp towards him and whispered, "Honey, I want shrimp." Carter looked at me for a moment, then started to peel the shrimp. I could tell he wasn't very skilled at it. But that's okay. As the beneficiary, I won't be picky. At least he remembered to remove the shrimp veins. I happily tuck in, occasionally cracking a few jokes. She says with a smile, "Honey, I feel so happy," and then adds, "The shrimp you peeled really are especially delicious. Honey, I really love you very much." Carter is delighted to hear this, and the shrimp peeling becomes even more proficient. Suddenly, the phone rings, breaking the warm atmosphere in the room. The word appeared on the screen. I felt a sudden panic. Carter calmly wiped his hands. He picked up the phone. He stood up and walked outside to answer the call. The smile on my face suddenly froze. It disappeared. I watched his back through the window. I silently thought to myself, "Carter, I'm willing to give us one last chance. But you, what will you choose? I haven't forgotten the past. I just don't want to become someone's substitute like this. I'm not willing to easily give up just because she's returned." After all, I've been by Carter's side for 5 years. When he was lost, sad, lonely, and helpless, I was always by his side. That once white moonlight. Why should I easily let go of everything I've worked hard to build just because of a favor from my student days? I heard that Emily was coming back. I've been uneasy. That car accident was an accident, but amnesia might be an opportunity. Carter, if I really have to lose you, then I want to be by your side at least as your official partner. I want to be selfish with you even if it's the last time. When Carter came home, I had already finished eating. The dishes were all cleared away. I said, "I'm full. I can't eat anymore." I watched his brow furrow slightly. I asked him, was there something wrong with that phone call? Something came up at work. Liar. I immediately became tearful. I looked very pitiful. It's all my fault. It's all because I had an accident. That's why I'm late. You should go back to the office. Don't let me hold you up. I'm so useless. I can't help you. I'm just a burden. I cried bitterly. Even Carter felt a little sorry for me. He smiled helplessly and said, "I just said there was something at the office. Why do you think so much of it? Isn't it true?" I said seriously. "Next you're going to say you have to go back to the company immediately to deal with things. Then you won't come back for the night, and maybe you'll make compromises to save the company, marry some rich and powerful heiress, and finally abandon me." Carter was silent for a while. I continued, "I know, I'm hurt. I have a bump on my head. I'm definitely not as good-looking as before, and I've lost my memory. I can't remember anything from before. I'm just a useless person now. My head hurts, but seeing you cook for me makes me really happy. You should go. Don't let me keep you." Sigh. "Sophia." I opened my big innocent eyes, looking at him with a grievance. Carter sighed lightly. "Does your head hurt?" He touched it lightly, saying, "A little. It may be the effect of the car accident." The doctor also urged to rest more. "Go up and rest for a while." I looked at him a little embarrassed. "I don't want to sleep alone. I'll stay with you. But didn't you say before that you had some work to do at the office? Some things can be done online. Besides, you're hurt." I couldn't help laughing. My mouth was turned up to the ear. I slept soundly leaning against Carter. My arms were wrapped around his strong waist. I was enjoying it without reservation. He had kept his figure so well, and those six-pack abs, half asleep. I heard Carter's phone ring again. Although he hung up quickly, I still heard it. The caller kept insisting. Carter had to answer the phone. Since I was hugging him so tightly, he could only answer it next to me. A woman's voice came over the phone. "Carter, I've been waiting for you. I've already asked Ethan to pick you up at the airport. I wanted to see you as soon as I got back. I'm sorry, I have other plans today. Carter, when is it convenient for you recently? I want to meet with you. We'll see. It's not decided yet." "Carter, I can't talk right now. I'll contact you later," Carter said, and hung up the phone. I couldn't help but smile again at the corner of my mouth. Carter actually did it for me. Refused Emily, who he had always liked. This made my heart feel good. I am Carter's lover. He chose me because I look like Emily. Emily was the girl he had a crush on when he was a student. After the college entrance exam was over, he didn't have the chance to confess his love. Before he knew it, the goddess of his heart had already left the country. This kind of unrequited love, coupled with the barrier of distance, made Emily an unforgettable white moonlight in Carter's heart. The more you can't get it, the more difficult it is to calm your heart. As time passed, Carter's memories of that period of time continued to be embellished. Eventually, when he met someone like Emily, he even made a ridiculous request to sponsor me. I did hesitate, but he offered me 500,000 yuan a month. He helped me buy a house and a car and even bought me a bag. He is very handsome. and has a great body. Most importantly, I really like him. So, considering the factors of money, appearance, and affection, I reluctantly agreed in the end. After becoming his substitute lover, I became even more certain that the Carter I like is a good person. Although the reason we got together was as a stand-in lover, Carter treats me like a real girlfriend. He takes me to his friends' parties and introduces me as his girlfriend. Even if his friends know the inside story, they don't gossip in front of me. Besides, Carter is definitely a competent boyfriend. He never skimps on his care for me, and he's always generous with gifts. I don't mind being called a stand-in lover. To me, it's just a role-playing game of the domineering CEO and the shy sidekick with the man I like. But this is only the case if Emily doesn't exist. For the past 5 years, Emily has only existed online. It's the occasional moment of hesitation in his gaze when he looks at me. It's the New Year's greetings he sends. It's the gift he sends on her birthday. It's just these things, and they haven't made me feel anything major. But things are different now. Emily has really returned to China. She is no longer just a name that Carter cares about online. He is a real person. This moment, the concept of a stand-in lover has become concrete. I only have 2 options in front of me. First, leave quietly, make way for the real protagonist. Second, continue to be an obedient lover, waiting to be valued. But I am not convinced. The relationship I have worked so hard to maintain, how can it be replaced by a woman who only relies on memories from her student days? I have to find my own third way, create new possibilities. Maybe I'll be hated by everyone, and eventually leave completely. Then I'll have to get more money from Carter. To get my money back, maybe I can completely replace the main character, live with the man of my dreams openly. As for what will happen in the end, it's still hard to say. I woke up the next day. Carter was already busy in the kitchen. I leaned against the wall and pouted. This guy, he really does have a knack for cooking. And he says he just loves the food I cook. It's like all my hard work is for nothing. But I did learn to cook to win Carter's heart. And now, it's nice to be taken care of by him. I hug him from behind and say coquettishly, "Honey, good morning, breakfast is almost ready. Let's eat in the dining room, at the table." Only the sound of the chopsticks clinking. I ask, "Honey, are you going to the office today?" "Can I come with you?" I look at him pitifully. "I can't remember anything right now. I only know you. I don't want to be far away from you," Carter says calmly. "I have a meeting in the morning, and I can't look after you if you're here." He finishes. He hands me a black card. Carter smiles slightly, with a hint of cunning. "If you're in a bad mood, go shopping. You used to be so happy when you shopped." The moment I saw the black card, my eyes lit up. I hurriedly declined. "This is too much." He quickly took the card and asked, "How much is on this card?" Carter bowed his head slightly and smiled. "No limit." I looked at the man in front of me and felt that he had suddenly become even more handsome. "Honey, I really love you." Before Carter left the house, I gave him a tender but persistent kiss. She said tenderly, "Honey, you worked hard. Come back early. I'll be waiting for you at home." Carter smiled and lightly tapped my nose. Then he turned and walked away. I looked at the man's receding back and sighed. Men who work hard to earn money are really attractive. If I can't have him, at least I want his wealth. Immediately afterwards, I quickly got dressed. Then I drove my red Porsche to the luxury brand shopping mall. How can I relieve my worries? For me, the best way is to go shopping. As a practical person, I only buy things that will retain their value. In this way, I can resell them in the future if I need money. I'm really a smart person. Looking at the huge bill I'd racked up in one day, I started to feel a little guilty. Was I too impulsive? But I quickly cheered myself up. Carter's money, I'm not spending it. Should I leave it for someone else to spend? I'm really sensible. Reward myself with another bag. I'm happily swiping my card to pay. Suddenly, I see a mother and daughter not far away. They look familiar. That's my mom and sister. My sister is hugging a bag tightly. She can't let go of it and says, "I really like this. I want this." "Mom, I'm getting married. Can't you be generous with me? You're so stingy. When I marry into this family, how will they respect me?" I notice that the shoes on my mother's feet have come apart. The bag she's carrying has worn through. Her clothes are still the same old styles from years ago. Deep wrinkles have appeared around her eyes. Her hair is beginning to turn gray. The fashionable woman I remember has been changed by time. Now she is completely different. She is not stingy. She really can't afford it. Look at that younger sister again. She is wearing a designer suit, stepping on famous shoes, carrying a luxury bag. looking like a celebrity. I just don't know how much effort my mother and that man have spent to raise her up like this. The salesperson noticed that I had been watching them, so he took the initiative to ask, "Sophia, you like that bag too, if you like it. We can give it to you directly." I smiled softly and shook my head. "No thanks, I'm not really interested." I didn't go up to say hello, nor did I initiate a conversation. It was as if I had met a stranger. I calmly turned around and walked away. My relationship with her and her daughter had ended completely that summer. To be honest, I wasn't exactly a nice person. In other words, I was a particularly selfish person. My experiences had shaped me into the person I am today. I also once had a happy family. Unfortunately, it didn't last long. My mother wanted a better life. She chose to divorce my father, and she left me too. Life is full of ups and downs. Soon after their divorce, my father had an accident at work. He died tragically. Before I knew how to protect my rights, some greedy relatives cheated me out of my father's compensation. I was left with nothing. In the end, it was awarded to my mother. At that time, my mother had remarried. She became the mother of another girl, but because of the blood relationship, she had to accept my arrival. From that moment on, I began an almost dark student life. I lived with her, but I was not her daughter. I was just an outsider. I had to do the housework, do the heavy work. I didn't like my younger sister. She always made me eat leftovers in the kitchen. I couldn't join the rest of the family at the table. My mother never had a kind word for me. She rarely even said a kind word. But when my sister started crying, my stepfather and mother would always give in to her. They doted on her. As a result, my sister would laugh at me in front of our classmates. "What a sister! Sophia is just a dog in our family." In order to survive and to continue my education, I had to put up with all this in silence. As time passed, I gradually grew up. However, I noticed that my stepfather was looking at me in a strange way. One day, I caught him spying on me in the shower. This made me feel very uneasy. I immediately told my mother about it, but instead of defending me, she slapped me hard and scolded me severely. "Your uncle provides for you. He pays for your education. How can you say such hurtful things? If it weren't for your uncle's help, you would have been homeless. You couldn't count on your father, who died young." I gradually came to understand. She was never someone I could rely on. That night, my stepfather was drunk. He suddenly fell on top of me. I was terrified, but my mother was right next to me. She pretended not to see. I understood. She didn't care if I was hurt. She didn't even care if I was her own daughter. All she could think about was whether her family could remain together, whether she could still depend on the man in front of her. Tears of despair rolled down her face, but tolerating the situation didn't leave her with any options. Instead, she fell into an irreparable abyss. In my panic, I reached for the box cutter under the pillow and stabbed the man who was on top of me. He immediately stopped because it hurt. He fell to the ground and screamed in pain. Blood came out of his stomach. At that moment, my mother finally arrived. She saw that my clothes were disheveled and that my stepfather was in great pain. She decided to call an ambulance first. She frantically tended to my stepfather's wound. I slowly packed my bags. This family, it was never really mine. My mother stood next to me and whispered to me, "If you go, where will you go? Don't be bound by old ideas." Thinking that a woman's chastity is important. What's wrong with you going with him? He can take care of you. He can provide for you. He can even pay for your education. If you go out, who knows what kind of people you'll meet? It was the first time she spoke gently, but it sent a chill down my spine. I could not believe those words had come from my own mother's mouth. I understood. Our bond as mother and daughter had come to an end. I picked up my small bag. I was ready to leave her home. Before I left, I calmly told her, "From now on, you are no longer my mother, and I am no longer your daughter. Our mother-daughter bond has come to an end." That year, I was in my second year of high school. In order to complete my studies, I asked my homeroom teacher for help. After school, I worked part-time to earn money. I had to survive and find a way out of my predicament. Entering society too early, I learned to put on a front, and I learned to live for myself. My worldliness and shrewdness were both a means of protecting myself and a way of survival. I became refined and self-serving and selfish. Right and wrong don't matter. It's just a matter of personal choice. Now that I suddenly encounter my mother and sister, my heart is calm as water. If I still have the slightest bit of gratitude for my biological mother, it is for not bothering me all these years. I dream of having a home of my own. If the other half is Carter, that would be fine too. I see Carter's car pull up in front of the house. I adjust my position on the sofa, waiting for him to come home. She is wearing a silk halter dress. Her collarbone is beautifully defined. When she turns sideways, the straps slide down, revealing smooth shoulders and slender arms. Her eyes are mesmerizing and innocent. Carter naturally helps me pull the thin quilt up, asking why I fell asleep here. I've been waiting for you. I gently put my arms around his waist. I asked, why did you come home so late? I had a dinner meeting tonight. You've been drinking. Yes. What kind of wine did you drink? Let me try some. I kissed him on the lips. Although I was a bit rusty, I soon fell under his spell. In this matter, I was never his match. That deep kiss intoxicated me. I pulled the hem of his shirt down and slipped my hand inside. I knew this man well. I knew all his erogenous zones. There was no need to tease. A light touch was enough to set him off. I could feel his breathing getting faster, so I gave up resisting and let him rain down kisses on me. He was clearly unable to hold back any longer. We quickly moved onto the sofa for the first round of intimacy. I'd carefully prepared my pajama perfume and no makeup look according to his preferences. I was determined to seduce him. The result, we had an unforgettable night, to be honest. I quite enjoyed it too. I woke up the next day. I felt stiff and sore. Although I had enjoyed last night, he had lasted far too long. I looked at the man standing in front of the dressing mirror, tying his tie. I couldn't help but complain. Honey, your technique really needs improving. We've been together for so long. I'm the only one who can put up with you. Carter stiffly turns to face me. He's frozen in place. In the past, I always went along with him in bed. He did whatever he wanted. I never expressed any dissatisfaction, and now I've lost my memory. I continue to complain without a care in the world. Honey, you're always in the same position. Can you change it? My back is sore. You work like a bull. You're completely inconsiderate. Honey, were you always like this? Carter looked at me with questioning eyes, from fear to self-doubt. He couldn't say a word. I still comforted him patiently. Don't worry, we'll talk about it later. I patted his chest lightly and said with a smile, Honey, you're really great. After that, I calmly walked into the bathroom. I saw in the mirror that Carter's face had turned ugly. Today was really exciting. I finally had the chance to take the initiative. Carter had been restless all day. Even my assistant called to ask me if the boss hadn't gotten enough rest. I responded gently. He's getting old. He really needs to get enough rest. Pay attention to work-life balance. I don't know how my assistant looked, but I think Carter's face didn't look too good. The thought that the person who had been exploiting me had also been countered made me feel inexplicably happy. However, I soon paid a price for my arrogance. These past few days, Carter had finished work particularly early. As soon as he got home, he couldn't wait to discuss in depth with me whether his skills were really that good. He had so many tricks up his sleeve that I wondered if he had secretly taken some training courses. As for whether his skills had improved, I reserved my opinion for the time being. But I'm pretty sure my back is completely shot. Although relationships can develop over time, but physical health is really important. I'm lying on the bed like a tired dog, panting. The man next to me keeps asking, Sophia, how do you think I did? Very well. How specifically? You were really good. Anything else, my dear? I feel very happy. That's how it is. My husband, I love you. That's more like it. Carter kissed my lips contentedly, hugged me tenderly, and whispered, Sophia, good night. I smiled faintly in the darkness. Affection is important. Intimacy is indispensable to reward me for my hard work during this period. Carter once again generously gave me a bank card with no limit. I truly feel that my husband is exceptionally handsome. In order to live up to Carter's concern, I started shopping again like crazy. I did some rough calculations. The benefits I received from Carter during this period of time were enough to take care of my future life. I have always believed that one should be practical. This time I decided to mainly buy gold. I was happily admiring a gold bracelet weighing more than 100 grams when I suddenly saw a familiar man and woman in the cafe. Carter and Emily. What a coincidence! A sudden dull pain arose in my heart. I ignored the saleswoman's enthusiastic introduction. I pointed coldly at the most conspicuous and heaviest gold jewelry in the counter. I said lightly, These, pack them up for me. After paying, I stood in front of the coffee shop for 3 minutes. In the end, I decided to indulge myself. I had lost my memory anyway. I rushed in without hesitation. I confronted Carter with a barrage of questions. Carter, what are you doing with her? Are you trying to cheat on me? You were so close to me at night, but during the day you were flirting with another woman. How could you do that to me? I'm devoted to you. You're all I think about, but you actually had coffee with her. "What's so good about coffee? It's as bitter as Chinese medicine. You should take some Chinese medicine to improve your health. You're irresponsible. I want a divorce. I want to break up with you." After I said that, I didn't wait for them to react. I immediately turned around and left, because I had used up all my courage. After all, I was the first person to dance the substitute dance in front of the main character. And this kind of thing, the longer you stay, the more embarrassing it is. I returned home angrily, calmly waiting for Carter's decision, all along. The decision was in his hands when Carter returned. I was sitting on the sofa wiping my tears. My face was covered in tears. I looked particularly heartbreaking. Carter sat down on the single sofa a meter away from me. He asked calmly, "Have you had enough?" I answered, "I'm just not willing to give up." "Just because you're not willing to give up doesn't mean you can just break up with me." I looked at him through my tears. "Can't I just mention breaking up?" he asked seriously. "Sophia, are you sure you really want to break up?" Carter said seriously. "This isn't a joke. It's not an impulse." Looking at the man's cold eyes, I suddenly felt that there was no point in pretending anymore. I had already revealed my true self. I just didn't want to be someone's substitute forever. I just wanted to go back to the past, be that simple Sophia again. "Mr. Carter, thank you for acting along with me in this drama. Since she's back, let's just restore everything to the way it was." I looked at Carter with my eyes wide open, but in my heart I kept saying, "Don't say yes. Don't say yes." But Carter just looked at me quietly. After a long while, he said, "Okay, I respect your decision." After that, he turned around and left. When he reached the front door, Carter stopped. He turned slightly and said, "This villa was originally yours. I won't take back the things I gave you before. Sophia, thank you for your company for the past 5 years." When his figure disappeared completely, I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. They flowed down my face in an instant. This time there was no pretense, no acting. "Sophia, you really are sad. You lost the bet." I looked at myself in the mirror with a bitter smile, my face red with crying, my eyes red and puffy. I couldn't help but laugh at myself. "Sophia, you look so ugly. For a man, was it worth it?" Judging from Carter's reaction today, he is not easily deceived. He has probably already noticed my feigned amnesia, but he's willing to keep up the charade with me for now. It's really hard on him, but it proves once again that Carter is a good person. I can act crazy in front of him. It's because I know he's a good person. Only a kind person would dare to stay by his side as a stand-in. Only a kind person would dare to take advantage of his amnesia to do things he wouldn't dare to do before. Carter is a kind person, but he is also someone who is easily swayed and often torn between conflicting emotions. Carter's family background is similar to mine. After his mother passed away, his stepmother moved into the family home. Soon after, she gave birth to a younger brother. He became the neglected one in the family. Although Carter's family is well off, he doesn't have to suffer as I did. But he has suffered mentally. His stepmother is afraid that Carter will inherit all the family wealth. She deliberately spoiled him when he was young. She tried to drive a wedge between them, and she encouraged her own son to ruin Carter's reputation. Carter's father was very busy at work. He didn't have time to look after his son, so gradually, he only listened to one side of the story. During the years when Carter was being excluded and suppressed, only Emily was willing to help him. She treated him well. That so-called kindness was just a few words of defense at a banquet, but Carter remembered it. In fact, it was just lip service. How superficial kindness can seem. Emily was investing at the time. After all, Carter was being sidelined, but he had not yet completely lost his claim to the inheritance. Emily just knew better than to rush things. She knew that nothing was settled yet. She needed to wait patiently for her chance. Otherwise, why would Emily, who had not contacted Carter for years, suddenly reply to his message after he had succeeded? It was obvious what she was thinking. Carter just couldn't see it. Although he was a bit confused about Emily, but there was no denying it. He was a good person. After Carter took power, he didn't completely cut off his father, stepmother, and younger brother's way out. Instead, he put them in charge of the company's overseas business. As for how far they could go, it depended on their own abilities. He single-handedly supported the Carter Group, which had suffered a major blow in the power struggle, and with his own strength, he led the company to the top of the industry. Carter and I first met at a drinking party. At the time, I worked for a small company. In order to be promoted to manager, I had to win the project. I struggled to get into that dinner party, but at a men's dinner party, women are often just there for decoration, and the project that could determine my career development wasn't important to that boss. He joked that if I could finish the white wine in front of me in one go, he would give me the project. The table was full of men watching the fun. Carter was among them. I had no choice. I had to smile and accept the task. I drank the entire bottle of white wine without blinking an eye. After finally getting the boss's signature, I carefully exited the private room. As soon as I walked out, I rushed to the bathroom. I threw up. It was such a painful experience, as if my insides were on fire. I will never forget it. At that time, I really thought I was going to die. I staggered out of the bathroom. I looked up and saw Carter. He handed me a clean handkerchief. The logo on it was expensive. He said softly, "I suggest you go to the hospital for a checkup." I looked at him suspiciously. I asked, "Why?" He answered, "Because I think you're trying hard. I didn't stop you. It's because I feel you really need this opportunity, and you are a bit like my classmate." That night, Carter's driver drove me home. Before leaving, he handed me a business card. He said, "I appreciate employees with drive. You can consider working at Carter Group." After receiving the project bonus, I jumped at the chance to work at Carter Group and started a new challenge. During my time at Carter Group, I could feel Carter's care and affection for me, but he always restrained himself. Later, I gradually learned about his past with Emily. I also understood why I was so similar to Emily. I didn't feel sad. Instead, I felt that this was a good opportunity. I started to secretly follow Emily's Instagram. I deliberately imitated her dressing style and makeup techniques. However, I didn't copy exactly. I looked like Emily on the outside, but I was Sophia on the inside. At work, I worked well with Carter. In life, I took good care of him. In terms of thinking, I'm in step with him. In terms of our relationship, we have the same goals. I really did go to great lengths to make him like me. I know he likes me. He just doesn't want to admit it. Maybe he feels bad for the person he's supposed to be, or maybe there are other concerns, but I don't care, as long as I can achieve my goal. On the day the company went public, we had a bit too much to drink. Carter looked at me drunkenly and said, "Sophia, you're quite similar to her, but not quite the same." I looked at him deeply. "Then just think of me as her. Is that really okay?" I reached around his neck and kissed him. After that, things just happened naturally. My relationship with Carter was actually carefully planned by me. I appeared as a stand-in lover. This made the struggling Carter treat me better and better. I calmly accepted the situation. Who cares about an unattainable white moonlight? What I really want is the person who is truly by my side. I stared at the photo of Carter and me on my phone. I whispered, "Such a good man. Just let her have him." I really can't bear it, thinking about the email I sent him. I couldn't help sneering. "Emily, I can't have him, don't even think about it." I slept for a while. I quickly adjusted my emotions, whether Carter would come back or not. I had to prepare a backup plan for myself. I put the villa I was living in up for sale on the internet. I also publicly transferred all the gifts Carter had given me in my circle of friends. Within half a day, he angrily returned to the villa, seeing that I was packing things up. He became even angrier. Carter asked loudly, "Sophia, what's wrong with you?" My eyes were red and swollen. I said with a choked voice, "Seeing all these things reminds me of the past. It's hard for me. I might as well sell them." "Sophia," when he called my name, I couldn't help crying again. When I cried, he softened. Carter sighed and gently put his arms around me, pleading tenderly, "Sophia, let's not break up." "Okay," I hugged him tightly, suddenly realizing that I hadn't said anything about breaking up. "Didn't you say you wanted everything to go back to the way it was? Shouldn't you be the one to decide on the original choice?" I argued with justification. "Now your first love is back. The substitute and the original. You have to make a choice." I looked helplessly at him. "Say it, in fact. The decision has always been in your hands." Carter gently cupped my face and said seriously, "Sophia, I really didn't figure it out before, but I've figured it out during this time. I like you. Only you. It was never Emily. She was just a fixation from my past. You're the one who works hard with me in my career. You're the one who takes care of me in my life. You're the only one I like and who makes my heart flutter. You pretended to have amnesia. Wasn't that to make me understand my true feelings? Although you've been a bit of a nuisance lately, it's also made me see my own heart more clearly. Whether it's the gentle you or the occasionally headstrong you, I like both. It's just that I'm too stubborn. I've been stuck in the past. I haven't been able to see my own heart, and I haven't noticed that you've always been by my side. You're the one I really like. I know what you're thinking. I understand what you're planning, but I'm still willing to cooperate with you. I'm willing to be tolerant. It all comes from my love for you. Sorry, it took me 5 years to understand my own heart. Sophia, you said that the choice is mine. Now everything is back to the beginning. I want to choose again. This time I only want you. I calmly reply. No. Why do you think that just because you choose me I have to accept it? You are treating me with disrespect. You have a bad track record. Of course I have to think about it. Carter sighs helplessly and asks, so what are you going to do? He decides to woo me again, just like any man would woo the woman he loves. I don't want to be anyone's substitute. I am who I am, the one and only Sophia. Carter looked at me tenderly and smiled. Okay, now I'll chase you, Sophia. What should I do now? Help me tidy up the room and quickly delete those selling messages. These are all precious memories now. I quickly deleted the content of my circle of friends. I won't let him find out. Those messages are only visible to him. I looked at Carter, who was tidying up the room, and can't help but smile. 5 years. I've finally succeeded in turning things around. Looks like I made the right bet. Carter's extra chapter. I've long known that Sophia is ambitious and calculating, but strangely enough, I don't mind her little schemes at all. On the contrary, I find them quite cute. I know that she has privately learned about my interests and understands that she has secretly observed my actions. I also know that everything she does is to win my favor. Although her concern is utilitarian, but it's genuine, if you look at the actions and not the motives. Sophia's care is always so warm. The food she cooks is always so delicious, in her gentleness and thoughtfulness. Sooner or later, we will unconsciously fall deeply in love. Maybe because I guessed it was a trap from the beginning, so I have always been on guard. I didn't expect that, using the excuse of a substitute. Instead, it became an opportunity for us to be together, although it sounds a bit childish and a bit awkward, but it turned out to be quite suitable. Neither of us came from a perfect family, so we had to learn how to love others slowly. But fortunately, in the process, we both kept improving. When I met Sophia in the hospital, I could tell at a glance that she was actually faking her amnesia. Her cunning eyes could not hide her thoughts. Although I was curious about what she was up to, I decided to go along with her act, facing Sophia's cute and adorable appearance. I not only didn't find it annoying, but I also found her quite likable. I slowly discovered that it was precisely because it was Sophia that I found her cute. Emily kept asking me out again and again, and I gradually understood why Sophia had been acting a little strange recently. In fact, she wasn't as calm as she appeared to be. She was still a little concerned. She was also very worried and conflicted. That's why she used this method. She was forcing me to make a choice. She mentioned the day when everything had come full circle. I felt so sad. Our beginning, it had been a mistake from the start. That night, I slept very restlessly. In my dream, I was back at school, back when I was being isolated and mocked. It was Emily who stood up for me. She spoke up for me. She smiled. She gently encouraged me. Don't care what others say. You are the eldest Carter son. Carter, you're really something. I was just about to thank her, but then her face suddenly changed. Slowly, it became like Sophia's. Mr. Carter, our hard work has not been in vain. We have succeeded. Sophia, I woke up with a start. I let out a cry. There was no one around. I helplessly touched my forehead. Only then did I realize how much I cared about her. They looked quite similar, but their personalities were completely different. Sophia is like a clever little fox. She is lively and active. She dares to break the rules. And she can face gains and losses with equanimity. Her little tricks are just a way of protecting herself. I open an anonymous parcel by the bed. Emily sent it to me before she returned to China. It contains a detailed account of her colorful romantic experiences abroad. The content is quite eye-catching. I almost immediately guessed who had done it. I ask myself, if I knew she was someone who only cares about herself, would you care? I pondered for a while. It seems I wouldn't care. I asked myself again, if I found out that all her kindness towards me was for a purpose, would I care? I thought about it some more. It seems I wouldn't care either in that case. What am I still hesitating about? I know all your faults, but I still love you. I understand that you are calculating and value profit, but I still love you. I understand your thoughts, your pursuits, your ordinariness, but I still love you. The fox taught the little prince what love is. The little prince developed a deep affection for the fox. Sophia, meeting you, I willingly